In this episode of Decode Your Way, we had the pleasure to host Omer Tahir. He is well known for his hard work and passion for statistics. He hosted review sessions for Undergraduate Statistics Society here at UBC. This episode is the best one till now. Not just because I was able to host my mentor, but in between the podcast, he shared his story of failing and then becoming what he is right now. We always think that successful people are successful from day one. No, that's not the case, and Umer's story is an example of it. Tune in to Decode Your Way and get ready to inspired by Umer's story. So, Omer, what were your initial plans when you entered the university? Did you always have a clear intention to pursue stats?
I wouldn't say that I had a clear intention to pursue stats. When I was in high school, I had several different courses, and math was one of them, which just naturally I was really good at. So I always leaned more towards math. And when I reached university, again, was not sure at all what I was going to do. So I just registered myself in this standard timetable, which I was talking with you about earlier. And the standard timetable consisted of like several courses: biology, physics, chemistry, basically all the sciences which I never really wanted to do. But I had to do them. I would say it actually helped me figure out or narrow down the stuff which I actually really enjoyed, which was again stats. But then again, UBC doesn't have any 100 level stats courses, or maybe it does. I'm not aware of it. But math. I was doing calculus one, calculus two,
Yeah.
and was doing much better in those courses than my other science courses. And by my second year, I took my first Stats 200 course, which I really, really enjoyed. And I was, at that time, since I feel like I didn't really do well in my first year because I was adjusting to university, um, Stats 200 was the course in which I did the best out of all the other courses. And that is when I realized that stats is something which I want to do. Because again, there are some things which come to you naturally, and statistics always came naturally to me, and like all the concepts and everything. I feel like it was really easy for me to grasp them. And you're good at something when it's easy for you to explain the concepts to a friend. If you guys are talking about some of your homework, for example, and you're helping him deal with a problem, it's a really easy tell whether you're good at something if you can explain it really well to your friend.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's when I discovered that stats is something I really want to do. Even in high school, I had taken, I took like two stats courses, and in both of them I did really well again. So it was like a trend which I kept following, and then I found out that this is something which I really want to do by my second year actually. So I would say that even in my first year I wasn't even sure what I was going to do. It was in my second year when I figured out that stats was something which I wanted to do. And one more thing. So a lot of people have asked me what's the difference between math and stats.
Yeah.
Stats is more like applied math, and math itself can get very theoretical as well, or very abstract. This is something which I noticed in my second year, my third year. One of the courses which made me decide that math is not something which I want to pursue in my future was Math 220, which is a proofs course.
You are kind of scaring me because I have to register for that course as well.
That course, everyone has to be cautious before taking that course. It is one of the, I mean, if you're good at it, you're good at it. Some people are really good at it. One of my friends was really good at it. Thank God I took the course with him.
Yeah.
He ended up doing really well, but he was also carrying me with himself. I don't know, man. It's just logic and proofs and abstract mathematics. It's just not my cup of tea. But that's when I decided, no, math I cannot do after this. Like till second year, it's fine. 200 level courses are fine, except for 220. But after that, statistics was it was definitely statistics, something which I really wanted to pursue in my future.
So you guys didn't have DSI 100 at your time, or you had?
We didn't have DSI 100 at my time because when I transferred over to statistics,
Yeah.
so I was a math major, to let anyone know. In my second year, I did apply for a stats major, but I ended up becoming a math major. That was my third choice because my average was not too high. As I mentioned, in first year, I had a couple of other courses which I really didn't want to do. And then, yeah, by the time I transferred over to stats, which was in my third year, or by the end of my third year, actually, I got an email from the professor who I was in touch with. She basically told me that we've introduced a bunch of new courses, DSI 100, Stats 201, Stats 301, which you need to have as a stats major from the year 2021 onwards.
Okay.
And since I transferred over in the year 2021, those new requirements applied to me.
Oh.
But anyone who was graduating before me or transferred over before me, like the year before I did, those guys didn't have to take those courses.
Oh, so there was quite a big gap between the ones who have already graduated by now, I guess.
Yeah,
And we guys.
100%. And the people who have graduated before us, they don't have as much of an exposure to data science as we do because of these courses, Data Science 100, Stats 201, Stats 301. I'm really glad that I transferred over by the end of my third year because, again, statistics is like, it's a really big field.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in statistics,
Yeah.
a lot of specializations as well. So when you're looking at a master's degree, there's tons of specializations which you can do. And data science is that one particular specialization which I really, really enjoy. And when I say I was really good at stats, came naturally to me. Data science was something like within stats which I just really enjoyed doing as well.
Yeah.
Not only was I like really good at it, but I really, really enjoyed it. And then that, you can tell, I started like doing the workshops, teaching people. So, yeah.
We'll come to that point.
Yeah,
as
for
well.
sure.
We'll come
Yeah.
to that point.
But yeah, that's how I got really interested in stats.
So, like, your mindset was that I want to get into stats. So, how did you develop your skills out there? It's quite difficult to just get that mindset and then working on that mindset.
Yes, for sure. I feel like whenever you're doing something in your life, you should definitely, like, if you have to make a decision, you should be very committed to that decision. So for me, it was, like I told you, I was a math major, and then I wanted to switch to a stats major. I kind of went all in when, as we talked about this earlier as well. I basically emailed one of the professors in the stats department, telling them that I wanted to transfer over to stats. And they said that your average was low. That's the reason why you couldn't get into stats. And then they gave me a bunch of courses, some core statistics courses. And they were like, if you do well in these courses, then we will look at your application once you reapply. And we'll see if you're a good fit for our major. And I did apply in my second year. By the end of my second year, I took those courses. I did decent in them. I wouldn't say I did too well in them. But then again, my other courses, like some of my other courses, I didn't do well in them. So my average was not that high in my second year as well, which I believe is why they did not accept me in my second year.
Okay.
So I had to make a decision. I was like, either I'm going to graduate as a stats major, or maybe I won't even graduate as a math major. So I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. But then again, if you have any goals, you should be extremely committed towards them, and you will find a way to reach those goals once you commit yourself to them. So yeah, in my third year, what I did was I kind of went all in. I took all the core statistics courses from 200 level to 300 level. also, I was at this time I was still in touch with the professor as well, and they told me that you have another chance. Like you can take this, and this statistics course, and if you do really well in them again, we'll reconsider your application. So yeah, before taking those statistics courses, I started doing a lot of research on the side as well. So each course, like I searched online for the course material, which was basically included for all of them. I did some research, and then I looked at the topics they were teaching in those courses. It was a lot of self-learning was involved for sure. And I feel like self-learning is very important in university as well. When you're doing these tough statistics courses, because you can never have like a professor who's really good.
Yeah.
You might end up having one or two professors who are really good at teaching a particular course, but there will be a lot of times when, I'm not saying the professor would be bad, but you just won't be able to like understand what they're teaching as well as some other professors are able to like instruct or like teach you.
Yeah, I think that is kind of a difficult part with stats.
Yeah.
And not math as well, because it is like applied math. You have to understand it by yourself rather than someone spoon feeding you
Exactly.
how to get to that point.
And again, that's what university is all about. I keep hearing this, that the professors basically don't want to spoon feed you. That's the difference between high school and university. The professors will never spoon feed you. They want you to sit at home, and everything which you talked about during our lectures, you go home and then you either like revise them, or you go out of your way and like study more in depth about them, or through online research, or like just going over the notes again. That's the entire point of university, I feel like. And then that's a really good way to get better at any of the stuff you're doing as well. For example, like for all the statistics courses, for some statistics courses like Stats 404, I feel like the professor, I really didn't like the professor, but I did go home every single day. I found these online resources, a bunch of different online resources, and then not only that, I attended every single office hour as well, just to clear up my concepts, because I was already aware that this course is going to be hard, and with a professor who I did not understand very well, to put it in nice words, it was necessary for me to like put in extra effort, be proactive, and like attend every single weekly office hour to get good, like score good in the course. And I ended up doing really well in that course, and that course was supposed to be one of the most toughest stats courses out there.
Damn.
But yeah, what I would recommend to everyone who's aware of a course which they're gonna take, and it's a very difficult course, just be very cautious. But just because a course is difficult doesn't mean that you can't do well on them. There are office hours available for almost every course,
Yeah.
and they may not seem very important, but I figured this out very late into my university journey, that office hours are actually very, very useful.
Yeah.
People don't take advantage of them. They're free. They're available for you every single week. And whatever course you're struggling with, just make sure you attend the office hours, and make sure to like break all the problems, every concept which you cannot understand. You can break it down to the basics, and then from there, like you can build your way up with the TAs. Again, it's free help. Just I feel like office hours was one of the biggest helps for me throughout all my courses, and it's something which really helped me to like understand and like build my skills, as you said, build my statistical skills. I spent like 5 years in the major, can't pronounce this statistics properly. But yeah, office hours is number one for me. And then self-learning resources you can find online. These days you can find anything online.
Yeah.
You can literally like Google whatever. And now that you have ChatGPT, which is, I don't even know what will happen in the next 2-3 years. with a lot of university courses, especially coding courses as well.
Hmm.
ChatGPT is like, it's insane. But,
Coming to the ChatGPT point,
Yeah.
I feel like, for the especially the coding part,
Yeah.
it's not that great, but you do have other AI tools which can help you with that.
Yes, I've heard a lot about them, but I feel like I got unlucky with the ChatGPT thing because I graduated right before it became really popular. But if I was to have ChatGPT throughout my university, I would definitely make a lot of use of it. So I would recommend ChatGPT as your home tutor as well.
Yeah, for sure. It can actually teach you anything in
Yes.
such a less time and the way you want to learn
The
it.
way you want to learn it, for sure. The way it breaks down. It's basically like you can make it spoon feed you stuff.
Exactly.
Which is really, really, really helpful actually. And then you can also like use it to get access to resources which you would have trouble like finding otherwise, like on Google or whatever. Not only can it like spoon feed you information, but then you can get access to like good resources as well through ChatGPT.
Yeah, but I think that part is kind of ChatGPT 5, which is like connected to internet and stuff.
Oh yeah, I think it's GPT-4.
Yeah, GPT-4, my
Yeah, yeah. Again, that stuff is also like involves a lot of statistics as well,
Exactly.
which is one of the reasons why I got into stats as
Yeah.
well. Obviously, ChatGPT got like mainstreamed in my fourth year, I think,
Mhm.
by the end of my
Recently, I
fourth.
guess this December, because my semester
Yeah.
was about to over and there were a few people using ChatGPT.
ChatGPT,
in
yeah,
DSI
yeah,
exams.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh man, I don't know about this tool.
Exactly. So you could definitely make a lot of good use from ChatGPT, as long as it's allowed. As long as it's
Now it's not.
now
for
it's
sure.
yeah.
But at that time, there were no regulations. So yeah. And the
Yeah.
open book of DSI, we all know.
Yes.
That's done.
Exactly. Um, ChatGPT is definitely very, very interesting. Even in all of our in USS career events,
Yeah.
everyone brings up ChatGPT, asking like all em- the employees of the firms, asking them how ChatGPT has affected their work or whatever.
Hmm.
Every single time it gets brought up. It's just too mainstream now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So getting back to the question
Getting
again.
back to the question, yeah, ChatGPT.
So, like you mentioned about some specific courses, can you just name them which actually helped you develop the skill and you were like, these courses are actually mandatory
Yeah.
even if they are not required by
Oh, yeah.
the calendar?
First of all, I would recommend Stats 200, which is, I think, the first stats course anyone takes.
Yeah.
It just builds a basis of everything,
Hmm.
especially like hypothesis testing, which is required for almost every single other stats course.
Yeah.
And then we have our data science courses. I feel like UBC did a really good job by introducing these data science courses into a statistics major.
Hmm.
Data Science 100, Introduction to Data Science. Stats 201, which is, I think, inferential statistics.
Yeah.
And then Stats 301, which is statistical modeling, focusing more on predictive modeling, basically.
Okay.
But these three courses are all like data science courses, and data science is one of the most practical applications of statistics. They build your skills as well, like real world skills, which you can put on your resume and which employers are actually looking for. You get to do projects in these three courses as well. And again, you can put these projects on your resume for as your like data science projects, which I've done for like one of them, I think. Stats
Yeah.
301, yeah. Yeah, so the data science courses I would highly, highly recommend. And which other courses? Stats 300. 300 is basically non-parametric tests.
Okay.
Sounds very fancy, non-parametric.
It is.
But it's basically when you're not given ideal circumstances.
Hmm.
If you're like dealing with data under circumstances where your data is not normally distributed.
Hmm.
And a lot of assumptions which have to be true are not true. So basically any real world scenario.
Yeah.
That's when you use non-parametric tests. So you can't rely on like paired t-tests or
Mm-hmm.
t-tests because those things require a lot of assumptions before. So you can switch to non-parametric tests. And this was very, very useful because this course which I took, Stats 450,
Okay.
it's called Case Studies in Statistics, and it's only restricted to stats majors. It's one of the best courses I've ever taken because you're actually working with the client in that course. And what happens is the whole class consists of like 21 students.
Okay.
And the 21 students are split in two groups of three,
Hmm.
3 or 4, depends how big the class is. And each group is assigned a client. And then that client can be anyone. So my client was like a master's student
Hmm.
from UBC who was doing dentistry, I think. And he was working under his supervisor who was an orthodontist.
Okay.
So basically teeth stuff.
Yeah.
We had to do his all the data analysis for him, and he basically what he wanted to do was test the efficacy of Invisalign, which is this thing which you put on your mouth. It's basically an alternative to braces.
Mm-hmm.
It fixes all your teeth, crooked teeth. But yeah, so we were gonna do t-tests in that to compare the original data or original tooth positions to the new
the
tooth
new ones,
positions
yeah.
and see if the mean difference is 0.
Yeah.
If it's 0, it means it's not effective.
Hmm.
And if it's not 0 or very far away from 0, it means it's significantly effective, right? So our data only consisted of 40 or 41 observations, and it was not normally distributed. So it's a nightmare when something's not normally distributed. So that's when I got to apply my knowledge from Stats 300. So what Stats 450 does is it doesn't teach you anything. The whole course is only one single project. There's no final, no midterms, no assignments. And it's kind of scary because they leave you on your own mostly. Like you do have your professor who helps you out each and every time, but then the professor also, like at the same time, as we discussed earlier, they never spoon feed you. It's more like, okay, what do you think we should do in this scenario?
Yeah.
So that's when I started thinking, and then I was like, okay, so our data is looking very bad in the sense that we can't do any of the t-tests or whatever.
Yeah.
So the next thing which you can do is non-parametric tests, which I learned in Stats 300. I opened my Stats 300 notes, and then I could thank God I made my Stats 300 notes because I easily referred to them, and then one of the tests, the non-parametric tests, perfectly fitted with what we needed. It was basically an alternative version to the t-test, but it was like a non-parametric one. And yeah, applied that. Again, so basically I was applying a lot of my Stats 300 knowledge to my Stats 450 course, which was an actual case study. So this basically shows that Stats 300 is also very, very important.
Yeah.
And then every stats major should know regression. So Stats 306 is a course which just focuses on regression. The whole course is just regression and different types of regressions and going in depth as to how regression works with all the matrices and everything. It's an easy course. It's not that hard. The average is usually high, but you should be good with regression as a stats major for sure. And just to let everyone else know as well, when I was transferring over to stats, the professors recommended me these core statistics courses which every stats major should have, and that if I wanted to transfer over to a stats major, I should be doing well in these courses. And these consisted of stats 200, stats 300, stats 306, and which other one was it? Stats 302. Stats 302 is important, but it's very hard as well because it's very, very theoretical statistics. It goes deep into the theory of probability. That's why a lot of people struggle with it. A lot of students struggle with it. I personally struggled with it as well. it's a prerequisite to almost every other upper level stats course, unfortunately. But fortunately, we don't use most of its stuff in any of the upper level stats courses. I didn't do well in my stats 202, but I did really well in my all of my other upper level stats
It
courses.
is kind of like ComSci 110.
I'd say yeah. Yeah, it's not useful at all, but then
You have to do it.
you have to do it. Yeah. ComSci, man. Yeah, ComSci 210.
210.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take
you're
it
gonna take
like next semester.
I have my own story about ComSci 210 as well. A very, very interesting story.
It will be great if you can share it over here.
Yeah, alright. So, I'll be very honest about this whole thing, okay? So, what happened was, ComSci 210. I actually failed ComSci 210.
Oh, damn.
And then I retook it, and I did really well in it. I
Wow.
got like an 84%, I think, when I did it the second time.
Quite a way
Yeah.
high average for
Yeah, I really wanted to take this. I really wanted to talk about this actually in this podcast as well, because this was one of the things which I feel like I learned the most from throughout my university. Because I have never failed a course before this, not even in high school, not in university. And this was the only course which I failed in university. Only because it was coding. Obviously, I had no coding background before this.
Yeah.
ComSci 110 was my only coding background, but again, ComSci 110 is, I feel like it's just...
It's not a course, it's a trauma.
Exactly. Like, it's just a requirement which you never use in any other courses.
Yeah.
I get its purpose, it's to build on like other coding courses, but I just feel like it's not necessary.
Exactly.
Anyways, getting back to the point. ComSci 210. So, what happened was, I took that course with one of my friends. He was really good at coding. So, as we were doing the course, there's a whole project in the course, like a term project, which you build on throughout the term with like weekly deliverables.
Yeah.
So, I started off and then I was really confused. I didn't know what was happening in the course at all. Everything was just going over my head. Couldn't absorb anything, was watching all the videos, didn't understand. But it was my fault as well, because every time like a midterm came, I kind of crammed it. And coding is something which you cannot cram the day before. There is no way you can cram. It's more like math. You have to practice.
It is.
You have to practice and then you get good at it. You can't just open a book, read it, and get good at it. Right? So I had that mentality because of my high school. We followed the IGCSE schedule, which is Cambridge examinations basically.
Okay.
And what happens is by the end of the year you just give your final exams, which count towards your entire grade. Nothing before that counts towards anything. So what happens is everyone crams right at the end. So with that mentality, I did the same thing with ComSci 210. It was working for me for all the previous courses, but with this course in particular, I was screwed because that's what I did. Crammed at the end, failed my midterm. I was like, shit. And then my project deliverables started to come up. And my project deliverables, I didn't know what was going on. Like, I need to make my own app or whatever, an application, and I have no idea how to even write the basic code for an application. So what I basically went to my friend and then I was like, can we please do when you're doing a project, I just want to sit with you and then we can do our own stuff together. And while we're doing our own stuff together, like, I asked for help. So what ended up was that I was asking for help every 1 minute or two.
Yeah.
And obviously he's doing his own project, so our project's going to be really similar.
Yeah.
So I was like, he was building a to-do list and I was like, okay, fine, I'll build a to-do list as well.
Yeah.
So our code ended up being very, very, very similar, which is
Not acceptable.
which is not there was an academic policy that you can't copy each other's codes.
Yeah.
It was basically me copying his code because with code you can't make something work if you don't know how it works.
Yeah.
And for your code to work, like, it has to be in this certain order. And if you don't know how to code, then you have to like copy the other person's code for it to be in that order.
Exactly.
So me being very stupid, I kept copying his code, and then he was a friend just helping me out. I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Because he got screwed over too because of me. Yeah. After my fifth deliverable, what happened was I got an email from the comp sci department saying that your project has been flagged. 5 of your deliverables in your project have been flagged. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? This has never happened to me before. Like, and then they're like, if you want to appeal this, then you can arrange a meeting with the professor,
Yeah.
or you can just agree that you copied your friend's code or whatever, and it was academic misconduct, and then you'll get a 0 in all your deliverables.
Yeah.
I was like, I already failed my first midterm.
Hmm.
If I get a 0 in half of my deliverables, because you were like 5 deliverables, they're like 12 in total, I think. Like, if I get 0 in 5 deliverables, I'm not passing my project. I failed my midterm. There's no way I'm passing this course. So I was like, I'm going to take this to the professor and I'm going to talk with him,
Okay.
which was a mistake. So my friend obviously got the email as well.
Yeah.
So we talked about it together. We're like, okay, let's come up with a plan to like try to convince them that we didn't cheat. But then I was like, if this plan doesn't work out, then I'll say that I cheated, and
You'll be the one who will be safe.
yeah, you'll be the one who said, because you were just helping a
Yeah.
friend who's struggling.
Yeah.
Because obviously I didn't want him to get in trouble because he was actually good at the course
Hmm.
and he was getting screwed over because of me. So that's what happened. I went to the professor. We arranged this meeting, and the professor was actually like, he had a TA sitting right beside him as well, who was typing every single thing which I was saying. It's very intimidating. And they called my friend, the one who got caught with me, right after my interview, my like thing was done. So I remember I went there. He had these 2 sheets of paper in front of him, and they were basically highlighted, all yellow. All the parts which were similar were highlighted yellow. So basically, the entire sheet of paper was yellow. Yeah, so I went in, I talked to the professor. He's like, so did you cheat or did you not cheat? That's literally how he started the conversation. And I was
Yeah.
like, I did not cheat. And he was like, okay, what's your explanation? So I was like, so I was basically trying to like go around the academic policy, which was you can't copy your friend's code, you can't see your friend's code, and you can't send it to you via email or whatever. So what I was saying was, we did all our assignments together, not in the sense that we did each other's assignments, in the sense that we sat together and we did our assignments by ourselves. If someone was struggling with something, the other person would help him out.
Yeah.
So I was kind of trying to dodge the academic misconduct by saying that I didn't copy his code, but we were sitting together, and if I like had a problem, he would just like,
Help me with
he
that.
would tell me what the problem, like how to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Obviously, the professor knew I was bullshitting. After like 10 minutes of me like being very stubborn and not agreeing to the fact that I cheated, he basically like showed me the sheet of paper. He's like, this is your code, this is your friend's code, everything's the same, and I know that you're like trying to go around this policy and like not admitting that you cheated, but I know that you cheated. And then he started like kind of threatening me. He's like, if you don't accept the fact that you cheated right now in this meeting, then this will go to the dean of science.
Yeah.
And if they make a decision that you did cheat,
Yeah.
then you can get suspended for an entire year.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is becoming like a big mess. Like, there's no way of me to like get out of this without admitting.
Yeah.
And it was definitely the smart thing to do, which was to admit that I did cheat, like right at the beginning as well. I shouldn't have even done the meeting or anything. But yeah, after that, I was like, okay, fine, I cheated. It's like, why didn't you agree to this? Why didn't you admit to this before? I was like, I didn't know the consequences, and I was very scared. This is the first time it has happened to me. I've never struggled with all that the
Yeah, stupid
emotional
thing. Yeah.
story. And then he's like, okay, fine, we have this on file right now, but I was like, will this go on my file in the future as well? He's like, no, this stays with us. If you do this again, then it's gonna go on your file for sure. And after this meeting ends, you might get an email from the dean of science any day, because he will probably want to talk to you. And that got me really scared. I was like, shit, the dean of science is involved now? Like, this is getting even worse. I admitted that I was cheated. But after, for like 2-3 months, didn't get any email, nothing, no follow-up. But I was like, I had that in the back of my mind. I was like, shit, this is like, can get an email anytime. And I really don't want to talk to the dean of science. But yeah, after the semester ended, so what happened was the final, I went for the final, didn't know anything again, failed the final.
Yeah.
I actually got up after like 10-15 minutes in the final and just left. I was like, there's no way I'm passing this course. Why even try at this point? So got up, left, and then obviously ended up failing the course.
Yeah.
Then I got an email from the dean of science after that. I was like, shit, I thought it was all over. And I know, why aren't they leaving me alone? Like, I failed the course. I'm done with it. I don't want to take it again. And then Dean of Science was actually a really nice person. He talked to me about the whole thing. He was like, I get it. You were stressed. And people often don't make rational decisions when they're super stressed about a course which they're not doing well in. He was like, but I do recommend you taking this course again and trying a different approach, basically, to the same course. And that's what actually changed my mind. I was like, fine, I will do this again, and I'll see if I can do well in it. Like, not only do I want to just pass, but I want to do well in it as well. And it was kind of a personal thing as well, because even in high school, I was known as that studious kid who's achieved really good grades and everything. Never failed a course, so it was kind of a personal ego thing that how did I fail this course? Like, how can this course be this difficult that I was not able to pass it? So yeah, at that point I was like, I have to take this course again, and no matter what happens, like from this time I start from scratch again. Not that I have any good notes for this course anyways. And yeah, instead of cramming, which I would recommend to every single student, is that never, in university, never cram for, you always end up cramming for one or two courses, but generally just try to avoid cramming by staying up to date with the course material at all times. Just if you have 2 or 3 classes in a day, after every class ends or when you go home, just spend an hour only just reading through what you guys discussed in your lectures, and that's it. You'll end up saving much more time at the end, right before the exams, because you will already have all the concepts revised in your mind, and all you have to do is revise them again rather than learn them again. Because after such a long time, when you're finally deciding to cram for your exams, you're basically learning the things again rather than revising the things again. And yeah, that's what I did the second time I took the course. I was up to date with the entire course the entire time. Every single lecture, went home. I mean, not even went home, it was online. So after every single lecture, I basically worked on my project. Whatever it was. Just trying to practice. And any single assignment which I did it twice. It was just me being super, super cautious, because I knew that I'd fail the course. So I was like, there's no way that I'm going to fail this again. So that's why I ended up doing really well the second time. And it was because I changed my approach to it.
Yeah.
Going from a 36% to an 84%, just because I changed my approach. I feel like there's no such course which you can't do, even if it's very difficult. Maths 220, for example. I feel like if I do it again, I might actually do really well in it.
Yeah.
It was just that I was done with that course. I really didn't want to do it. I just wanted to pass. It was that mentality which stopped me from doing well in that course. And Math 220 I took before ComSci 210. So yeah, when I say that ComSci 210 was the course which basically changed my entire approach to studying. It's even after ComSci 210, every single course which I took, I did very well in. My average in my third year and my fourth year was much higher than my average in my first year and second year. Or the way I like to think of it is that my average after ComSci 210 was much higher than my
Yeah.
average before ComSci 210.
Yeah.
There are certain things which you learn from in life and that you feel that you don't really want it to have. Like failing a course is definitely something which no one really wants.
Hmm.
But then there are certain things which you don't want but you really need to like experience, to
Yeah.
learn from. And I feel like failing ComSci 210 was the best thing which ever happened to me. Getting caught cheating was the best thing ever happened to me, because it really like changed the way I started approaching or dealing with these situations or courses. If you're stressed, if you're really stressed, you don't know what's going on in the course, change your approach. And or like, instead of like asking for a friend to like do your work for you, sit down with them and then break down the concepts down to the fundamentals and learn from them. This is very, very important, because that's what I did with ComSci 210. And then, as I mentioned, Stats 404, one of the toughest stats courses,
Yeah.
I did the same thing. I was struggling with it in the beginning. And again, obviously, I'm not perfect. I had that thought in my mind. I was like, am I going to pass this course? But then I was like, I'm definitely going to pass this course. Like, there's no way I'm going to fail this course. And the way I would do that is by going to the office hours, attending the office hours, going to the TAs, and breaking every single problem down to the fundamentals. So that's something which I learned from ComSci 210, applied to Stats 404, and did really, really well in Stats 404 as well. So yeah, it was one of the, I'd say one of the best things that happened to me was failing a course for the first time in my life. And so yeah, that's my ComSci 210 story, which I really
Honestly,
wanted
like,
to share.
Coming to that ComSci 210 story, let's leave all these questions today.
Yeah.
So yeah, was there a self doubt in you after that course that
There is the guy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yes. He cut this out.
Yeah. So was there some self doubt in you that maybe I'm not made for these things? Maybe is this the
100%.
right
Yeah.
thing I'm doing over here?
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, we're all humans,
Yeah.
and there are certain things in life which really, really humble you. For me, it was like I always had this thing where I was like, I can't fail a course, because I feel like whatever I do, if I put enough time and energy into it, I will pass it, or I will do good in it. And in my family also, and when I talk about a family, I don't talk about my immediate family, like my entire like family, my cousins and everyone back home. I was that smart kid, that kid who was the high achiever. I was the one who did really well, who never failed anything, who never even got like a C or got only like 1 or 2 B's throughout his entire like high school. It kind of builds up on your ego as well.
Exactly.
And then after that, failing a course, it really, really got to me. Like, it kind of almost broke me down. I was like, I know it's just a course. It's your academics. But then, at this point of your life, academics is mostly like all that matters to you,
Exactly.
right? So those thoughts definitely came in my mind. I was like, and at that time, I was not even a stats major. I wanted to transfer into stats, and I failed a course before.
That point.
So I was like, I've failed this course. There is no way I'm gonna transfer over to stats major. Like, my chances of getting the major which I wanted to do are basically almost zero now. I have no motivation now. Because the chances are so low now. It was extremely demotivating in the beginning, like extremely demotivating. And I would definitely say, I wish I met someone who was in a similar situation at that time to like kind of console me for it, or like say that everything does work out in the end. Like, if you actually work towards it, like you can't just sit around and just like cry and then just like say that nothing's gonna happen. Like, what's happened has happened and I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like, you still can. You can always do. You can always fix the situation or make it better by working towards it. You can't just sit there and accept the fact that no, that you've like, fine, you have been defeated at this thing, this particular thing, but then you have to like try again. You only lose when you have given up. You don't lose if you've been defeated.
I use this quote: you lose when you actually lose.
Yeah, exactly. You lose when you actually lose. There is no losing in like getting defeated and then like trying again.
Yeah.
Trying again is the part where you win.
Hmm.
The actual win again is like, I feel like there's no such thing. Winning is just like not giving up, trying again.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, I was super demotivated. I thought to myself, now it's all over now. And then when I had that talk with the dean of science, that guy was like, the way he was talking, like he was being really nice about it.
Hmm.
And he was like, you should definitely try again, like do the course again, try a different approach and everything. And at that time, I was like, I was double-minded at that time as well. I was like, will another approach work? And then it just suddenly clicked. It was like, I have never failed a course. This is the only course which I fail. I'll make sure that I pass this course. Like, 'cause I don't want there to be anything which I can't do if I don't put my mind to it. But yeah, that's when I was like, I'll try again. Let's see if this works. Even like there were still doubts in my mind for sure when I was doing it again. But like 2 or 3 weeks into that course, like the second time I was taking it, I was understanding everything because again, different approach. And after like 2-3 weeks in is when I realized that I knew at that time that I can easily pass the course. Like the course wasn't even hard to begin with. Which is insane to think about now when I look back at it. My first experience and my second experience with the same course. My first experience was like, after my first experience, I would say, don't take that course. Worst possible course. I would never take that course again. Second experience, I highly recommend that course. It'll get, like, you will build really good fundamentals of, like, software development. CompStat 210 is the course which got me into coding. I started enjoying coding after that.
Wow.
From hating it, despising it, to really enjoying it with the same course. Which goes to show you again, like, when there's different ways to approach the same problem. Some ways are much, much more efficient and effective than the other ways. You might be used to one way, but you have to try out different avenues. Like, you can't just sit there in your comfort zone, which is, for me, which was like cramming for my exams. I had to try a different approach. And you get to learn these different approaches, and then you can apply them to like a lot of different other courses as well, especially like the tough courses. And can be very, very successful at them. But yeah, I basically really liked coding, data science. After that, I took data science courses in my third year, by the end of my third year. And no, data science courses I took in my fourth year, actually.
In your fourth year?
Fourth year, data science 100, stats 201. And then stats 301 was the last ever university course I took.
Damn.
Yeah. Because those new requirements were applied to me. So those were the only 3 courses which were left for me to graduate at the end. And then those are all coding courses as well. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, they have theory to them, but mostly coding.
Mostly coding.
And I took them after CompSci 210, and I found this new passion for coding as well. That's why I really, really enjoyed data science, was because data science was like a perfect mix of statistics and coding.
Exactly.
So it was like, I would say it was perfectly designed for me. That's why I really like data science again, is because it's just coding and statistics, the 2 things which I really enjoy now. And when I say enjoy, I'd say, so there are 2 different ways to look at it. One is when you're choosing a major, which I did in the beginning, was like when I went to the Meet Your Major event, where there are bunch of like professors from different specializations, and they like tell you about the major and everything. At that time, I was like looking at all the different majors, and I thought to myself, okay, you don't know what you want to do, but you know what you don't want to do. what I don't want to do is like biochemistry.
I second
Don't
you.
want
I
to.
second you at that
Exactly.
point.
So it was, for me, it was like choose the least worst option.
Yeah.
That's actually really that thing, this concept of choosing the least worst option,
Hmm.
it helps you out in a lot of situations. Because at the end of the day, you have to make the best out of the cards you're dealt with, right? The hand you're dealt with.
Hmm.
You can't just sit there and complain like I got a bad hand. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, fine, you got a bad hand. Now deal with it. What can you
Hmm.
do to make it better, right?
Hmm.
It depends on how you play or make use of that hand, right?
Hmm.
So in those scenarios where like in those non-ideal scenarios, just choose the least worst option. It'll get you through. It has gotten me through every single time. And then you can like, as like I said, you get the hand you're dealt with. You play the game, and then eventually you will get a good hand. For me, eventually, I got into stats,
Yeah.
and then found data science after that.
Hmm.
So, and honestly, like obviously there's a bit of luck involved as well,
Hmm.
but um, I would say it was mostly hard work as well, and staying committed, and the decisions you take, like sticking to your decisions.
Hmm.
Don't be double-minded. Once you take your decisions, you've taken your decision. Don't look back at it. Just again, it all comes back to deal with the card you have, the cards
Yeah.
you have, the hand you're dealt with,
Yeah.
and make the best out of it. So, yeah, this is something which has gotten me through a lot of stuff, a lot of problems throughout university. And yeah, it makes you more focused as well, because instead of worrying about the things which are not in your control, you start like taking action for the things which you can, and then yeah, making the best out of that situation.
So, in your story, you consider the dean of science as one of those persons who actually changed the whole story of your life ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. Super intimidated to meet the guy, obviously. Didn't want to meet him at all, but wasn't really left with another option. But yeah, it was just the way he just talked. Like, he was, what I expected was a completely different person. What I
Hmm.
expected was like the guy was trying to like intimidate me again and
Hmm.
saying, why did you cheat? Or like,
Hmm.
or telling me of the consequences and everything. But he was more like, and I feel like that was a really, really good approach on his part as well.
Hmm.
Um, Basically trying to be really nice about the situation, being very understanding about the situation, and advising me on what to, like, how to fix the situation I'm in. Because again, it was like at that point in my life, I had a really bad hand in my, really, really bad set of cards in my hand.
Hmm.
And I felt like giving up. I was like, there's no point of even going forward. There's no point of playing the game anymore. But then that guy was like, you're in this situation. Why don't you just like choose a different approach and
Hmm.
then do it again, try again. And it's all about trying again. And yeah, he was being super nice about it, which I really appreciate. But yeah, that's I would say the dean of science definitely changed the track of my entire university life. In by the end of my second year, yeah.
I'll be very honest out here, but this whole story
Yeah.
literally changed my perspective.
Yeah.
Honestly, I believe that you are my mentor. I told you.
I remember it.
Yeah, I
I
told
really
you this
appreciate
before
it.
as
It
well.
means a lot.
And
means a
now
lot.
with this story, it's like you know, usually what we think that mentors are like very idle, and what I have seen you, giving workshops and stuff, I'll be
Yeah.
like, man, this guy is definitely 100 on his transcript.
Exactly.
But coming down deep, knowing the actual
Yeah.
person, knowing
Yeah.
that everything is not 100, everything
I
is
mean,
not
nothing's
idle.
ever 100. Yeah.
You have to face the failures as well,
Exactly.
and that's what make you a better person, and be it in professional or personal life.
Yeah,
It's the
100%.
failures which helped you get to the top, and not you consistently putting effort to get to the top.
Yes. And I always, that's a really good way to look at it, because whenever you see someone who's doing really well, exceptionally well in something, like for example, someone's doing really well in their academics, has a 4.0 GPA, you think to yourself, damn man, this guy has gotten everything together in his life. He's doing so well. Like he must be so content with himself and everything. But then there's always like a much bigger story, or like there's much more stuff going on at the back behind the scenes, which you're not aware of. They might be struggling with something else way more than you are struggling with that particular thing, something which you have become really good at, but they're not good at all, and they want to be good at that thing. No one's ever perfect, and this you also like when I'm doing the workshops.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have that imposter syndrome. It's like, should I be the one teaching this, given that all the stuff which I've been through? But then again, it's like that stuff is what has put me in this position now. Like someone who hasn't been through any of that doesn't know what it's like, and he hasn't learned from all of these experiences which I have learned from. And I really like to make it a clear point as well when I'm doing the workshops is that don't think of me as this super organized person who's like doing the workshops, doing my academics, nailing everything down. I remember I really wanted to talk about this too. At the end of one of my workshops, I was like, basically when I was doing my workshops, I was my 5th year. And my 5th year, I only had one course left, which I couldn't take over the summers because it wasn't available in the summer. Stats 301.
Okay.
So winter term, one course. That's 4 months, one course. And then I was like, well, fine, I'll just do workshops. And then by the end of one of my workshops, I said, for any of you guys wondering how I'm able to like do these workshops during midterms, during finals, and manage my academics as well, don't worry, it's not tough at all. I just have one course registered.
I was in the workshop.
And then people started laughing.
I literally remember these words of yours.
People started laughing at me. I was like it's a good way to like tell everyone that, because people do genuinely, people get stressed. They're like, this guy's doing so well. He's got everything like down to the point. Like he's managing everything really well. He must be so good at this. But then they start like scrutinizing themselves as well, and they're criticizing themselves. And this is coming from a person who does the same thing. Like if I see someone in a higher position, like someone doing really well, I just think that they're perfect, or like I used to think that they were perfect or they had everything together. But then time and time again, I find out that that person is struggling with a particular thing. It happens with my friends as well. It humanizes the other person, and personally as well, it makes you feel that, okay, fine, I shouldn't be too hard on myself either. Like, I know that person is like doing good, but then again, like, he is human too. I'm sure he's been through a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah.
And he's probably struggling with some stuff as well. Everyone has their own struggles. For you, it may be academics. For you, it may be something much more personal in life. So yeah, I feel like I had to say that during the workshop just to like humanize myself as well to everyone, because that thought does come into a lot of people's minds, and it's best to like make sure no one gets demotivated or like looks at the other person thinking I can't do that, like this guy's too good at what he's doing, right? So yeah, that's something which I want to talk about. That's a really good point too. Like, no one's perfect. Like, behind the scenes, there's a lot that has went on with the other person, but then that's what has brought him up to the position he's there. And with the workshop, we'll talk about the workshops as well, which I would actually really like to talk about the workshops as well.
But I think for today, we might be out of time.
Oh, no. Okay,
but for sure.
Bro, it was so fun.
It might be next week. It might be in few days.
Yeah,
I'll ask for another time slot of yours.
For sure, man.
I'll book this room again.
Okay.
I'll go through these all questions. But the
Sounds
whole
good.
podcast today, which turned out to be like a very different one from the one I thought. Yeah, all these questions are chat GPT. I'll be very
I respect
honest.
that, bro. I would have done the same thing.
I just put the my thoughts into it. I just put your LinkedIn profile into
everything,
it, and I'm like, okay, generate questions as if some junior is asking and stuff. And then I figured out, okay, for this is a better approach and stuff. But then
totally understandable.
actually knowing the struggle and actually knowing
Yeah.
how it all works from the ground is the best part rather than these chat GPT
Oh
questions,
yeah,
I'll say.
100%. Yeah. And with the podcast especially, so first when you, I'll just like wrap it up
Yeah.
as well. When you asked me to do the podcast, I was very nervous at first. I was like, damn, I've never done a podcast. I was like, should I do this? Should I not do this? This is something which I want. Next time when we're doing a podcast, I'll talk about this.
Yeah.
Especially with the data science workshops, was
Mhm.
basically I was going to talk about like stepping out of my comfort zone
Hmm.
each and every time. And this podcast is also one of those things which I was like, if I don't do it, I don't gain anything, I don't lose anything. But if I do it, even if I don't gain anything materialistic or anything like that, I will definitely be proud of the fact that I did it
Yeah.
because I wasn't comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a very, very healthy mindset to have, like going out of your comfort zone or like conditioning your mind to something which you're not comfortable with.
Hmm.
And then you sent me the questions and I was like, should I prepare the questions? And then a thought came into my mind. It was like, what if I put these questions in chat GPT and tell it to answer these questions and I can like prepare accordingly? But then I was like, no man, this conversation has to be organic.
Hmm.
And for it to be organic, rather than me like rehearsing the answers to all the questions, I was like, I'm going to treat this as an actual conversation between two people.
Hmm. Exactly. That's the whole
Yeah,
point of
that's
the
what I
podcast.
wanted. Yeah, I just wanted to like more of like a talk with you rather than
Yeah.
like you shooting questions and me answering all the
Yeah.
questions, and which worked out really nice. I feel like at the end.
And
Yeah.
definitely, I want to make another podcast with you
For sure, man.
anytime soon.
Yeah.
But this one, I'll say, obviously, this is the third time I'm
Yeah.
doing it. But this will be the best one because I literally jumped out of the box
Yeah.
and listened up the whole thing. And obviously, the people listening out there,
Yeah.
you know, a ton of people in my friend group as well.
Yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
oh, Omer, man, that guy is on another level.
Bro, I'm not on another level. Just letting you guys know. Again, as I mentioned, everyone's human.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun talking to you, man. Like I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually really looking forward to coming again whenever you're like down to do it.
Yeah,
again.
for sure. Thanks a lot for coming today as well.
Oh yeah, thank you for having me over, man. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was actually a pleasure to know the whole story of Omer, actually.
I have some interesting uni stories as well, other uni stories.
For sure. We'll cover
For
it
next
up in the
time.
next
Next time.
episode.
Next time. Yeah.
Yep, thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. We'll come up again for sure this time.
100%.
In like a couple of weeks, I'll upload the second episode of this if everything turns out to be good.
Okay.
Then see you soon. Have a great weekend, or if you are in between the week, have a great week ahead. Thanks a lot for listening.
See you
soon.
guys.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.